Data is abundant, and you might reasonably assume that people are making more database decisions than ever. The website globaldata.com estimates that the value of the data and analytics market was $112 billion in 2023 and will grow to $190 billion by 2028. Analysis of search terms reveals increased interest in data-driven decision-making. However, Oracle published a survey in 2023 which highlighted that more data doesn't always equal better decision-making. In response to one of the questions in that study, 86% of respondents said that the volume of data available to them is making decisions much more complicated. Increased availability of data should reduce complexity, take risk out of decision-making, and should highlight additional opportunities. Nevertheless, there is a question mark against the idea that more data enables better decision-making. Along with a rise in the amount of data, there's been a rise in tools to visualize and disseminate that data, as judged by increased searching for business intelligence tools on Google. BI tools such as Power BI and Tableau allow the user to extract data to their specification without the need for a lot of training or the ability to code, as is required when using Python or R, for example. In that context, we've seen more search for no-code tools and drag-and-drop data. Taken together, increased search for BI tools, no-code, and drag-and-drop, that indicates a desire to put more data into the hands of decision makers. There is an ambition among many organizations to enable what's called self-serve analytics, indeed to democratize the use of data. Rather than rely on data analysts and/or third-party agencies, many organizations want to utilize technology to automate the process of data collection and visualization. The popularity of BI tools like Power BI and Tableau, that is suggestive of this. Why then do we find evidence that more data is increasing, not reducing, the friction involved in decision-making? In the rush to automate, to make access to data easier, we have forgotten that decisions do not emanate from data without following a process underpinned by expertise in the analysis of data. Risks are not mitigated, and opportunities are not identified automatically from datasets served up in BI tools. Organizations invested in self-serve may have provided better access to data, but have not necessarily always provided the training needed to enable decision makers to follow the right process to maximize the value of that data. The void between data and decision making is why we hear so much about storytelling with data, since the process of telling a compelling story is analogous to the process required to enable data-driven decision making. Interestingly, increased searches for data storytelling have lagged that of data visualization, but the gap between the two is narrowing, indicating that those who seek value in data recognize that both of these things are needed. But if stories are not being told with data, then what is happening with that data? In my experience, and this applies to the use of data in general, whether self-serve tools or not, the emphasis is on the data itself, the quality of the data, for example, what kind of analytical routines can be applied to it, and then visualizing that data. Less time and effort are spent on identifying the right question, planning the analysis in the right way, and aligning the output to the original question so that clear guidance emerges. People often don't follow a deliberate process in their use of data. They tend to follow more of an intuitive process, letting each finding change their intellectual course. When they come across something interesting or surprising, they seek to understand why. Once they have exhausted the data, or themselves, or they've run out of time, whichever comes first, they put all the findings together and try to work out what the story is, what the conclusions and recommendations should be. In other words, the approach which is often taken is to identify the question, then decide on the data which are going to be useful in answering that question in general. Then analyze that data, decide what is useful and what isn't useful, and then consider all of those findings together and how they help answer the original question. But that's usually after spending lots of time creating charts, dashboards, spreadsheets, and other types of content. This is a disconnected and inefficient process. Why? Because the question, the original question, isn't being used as a through line. It's being used as something to kickstart or inspire a somewhat independent process of collecting and analysing data which may or may not turn out to be useful. The equivalent would be an author writing a book where they first create a theme or a plot and then write a series of chapters with that plot broadly in mind, but without having already decided how the chapters are going to work together to form a conclusion or an ending. If the question we start with isn't a through line in the analysis process, then the output, in the end, won't be aligned to that question, and the output won't resonate, therefore, with whom it is shared, rendering the data useless. In that case, whatever the output is, be that a report, a dashboard, an email, a presentation, a discussion, and so on, it's not going to be persuasive, and therefore it's not going to be memorable, and therefore it's less likely to be shared with more people, and as a consequence less likely to be acted upon. When I created my business, I chose the word narrable, which means capable of being narrated or told. Now I have 3 objectives. 1, to inspire data practitioners to engage in this topic and believe they can have more impact on decision making through data. 2, energize business leaders to invest in training, which helps those working with data to connect outputs to decisions. And 3, to explain that best practice process and provide the means to train it. The aim here is for the data industry to evolve so that more of our outputs are memorable, persuasive, and shareable. In other words, to be more narrable.